How's it going, Star Seekers? I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to the channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at a rather unusual title called Buildings Have Feelings Too. It's a kind of city management game where you have to build up the neighbourhoods of different regions, introducing new buildings to develop the area whilst catering for the needs of each building by placing them next to others that they enjoy the company of. As you work your way through the game, you'll then unlock new types of buildings, and you'll need to complete objectives in order to grow your city and its population of buildings. Now, it sounds like an intriguing premise for a game which holds a lot of potential, so don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to be notified of my latest reviews and content, and let's jump into this review and take a look at how well these ideas come together. So Buildings Have Feelings Too is set to release on the 22nd of April, where it's going to be priced at £14.99 on the UK eShop and $19.99 on the US eShop. The game is also going to be releasing on PlayStation, Xbox and Steam. Now I'm going to start this review by saying that I won't be giving Buildings Have Feelings Too a rating. As you'll see later on, I was unable to get past the first section of the game due to a buggy NPC. And while others like Switchheads did manage to get a little further into the game, there was a whole host of issues with this one which I'll cover off shortly. For now though, let's talk about the game's story and its basic gameplay mechanics. Now, Buildings Have Feelings Too begins with an opening cutscene where we find ourselves at the dockyard witnessing the destruction of Old Pete, a factory who is way past his prime and is no longer fit for purpose in the eyes of the city. Now, we play as a building called the Halfway Hotel, and our mission is to ensure the rest of the city's buildings don't suffer the same fate as Old Pete, and so we have the ability to decide what buildings should be constructed, where they should be placed, and what kinds of businesses they should run. As you progress through the game, you get to travel to different regions of the city, building up the neighbourhoods in each of them, but as I said previously, I was only able to get to the game's second area, and due to a bug that stopped me getting any further, I won't be able to show footage of anything beyond this point. So the first level of the game teaches us the basics, and while I say basics, the game's mechanics are actually quite complex, and despite there being a guide for the game, there are several things which aren't explained very well. Now, the main objective in Buildings Have Feelings Too is to increase the appeal of your neighbourhood, indicated by hearts at the bottom of the screen. This is done by completing tasks for buildings, which include things like upgrading buildings to a certain star rating or changing out the business that a building is running. And completing objectives also rewards you with bricks, a very valuable resource which plays a big role in the game. Now, for the most part, the game's controls are relatively simple. We're able to construct buildings by selecting a free slot in the neighbourhood and then selecting the building we want to create, but buildings require bricks in order to construct them, and different buildings will occupy a different number of spaces, so you often need to move other buildings around to fit them in. Hitting the R button will tell a building to follow you, after which you can relocate them, and you're able to swap them with other buildings or place them in a position which causes the other buildings to automatically shift you across a bit. Now, the buildings that you place together is of great importance, as each building has its own appeal goals which must be fulfilled before the building can be upgraded, and some buildings also produce negative byproducts such as smoke or bad smells, which can have a negative effect on surrounding buildings' appeal goals, making them harder to reach. Each building type has a limit on the types of businesses that they can run, indicated by icons next to them in the construction menu, and each type of business provides a different resource which counts towards other buildings' appeal goals. For instance, a building running rented rooms will provide locals to the area, and a greengrocer will provide fresh veg, while an office block will provide stationery and pubs will provide pints. But the area in which they provide these resources is limited, so the correct placement of buildings becomes doubly important, and you're able to get an overview of their area of effect by holding ZL. Now, as you work your way through missions, you're going to spend a lot of time moving different buildings around, repositioning them in order to make the criteria for upgrades. And upgrades not only increase the appeal of an area, they also change the type of produce that a building provides. As you progress further into the game and complete missions, you unlock quite a wide selection of buildings, and these are all displayed in a handy tree diagram accessible from the pause menu. Now, I found the process of actually selecting and moving buildings to be a bit of a pain sometimes, as just highlighting the right building can be fiddly, and sometimes other buildings just won't shuffle down when you try to reposition them. Completing mission objectives also involves a lot of rebusinessing, that is to say changing the business of buildings, and here is where one of the main issues comes into play. Now, what is supposed to happen is that each time you change a business, you're supposed to incur repairs which cost bricks to fix. If you choose to fix the repairs, then you'll get rid of one of the repair icons on a building, and obtaining 3 of these icons will result in you having to demolish a building and start over. The brick cost of these repairs can be ridiculously expensive though, meaning that sometimes you may as well just demolish buildings and start over anyway. Now, you're able to earn bricks by completing tasks and upgrading buildings, but the reward for upgrading buildings appears to be bugged, as I often receive no bricks at all from them, and to make matters worse, the process of just removing a business often costs bricks, which isn't stated anywhere in the tutorial. To give you an example of this, here it was supposed to cost me 4 bricks to remove the business, but then 6 bricks were deducted from my balance, and I don't know if this is yet another bug, but you then have to pay the same amount of bricks again to carry out repairs, and I ran out of bricks several times trying to just complete the first level of the game. The game also auto-saves at points, which it did after I ran out of bricks, and there's not actually a way to restart an area, so your only option is to begin a new game, and hope that you use less bricks on your next run. Now, the issues that I had with the game don't stop there. Another thing which isn't really explained very well is that when you upgrade a building, its appeal goals instantly change, and it appears that the longer your appeal goals are left unmet, the more damages your buildings occur. This means that you have to check what the appeal goals are in advance and have a new area to move buildings into before you upgrade them, which is almost impossible due to the limited space in which you're able to build. At one point in the game I had 2 office blocks which had been perfectly happy in their location and all appeal goals had been met from the start, meaning they hadn't incurred any repairs, but then the second I upgraded them to 3 stars and the goals changed, they instantly went into meltdown and a timer started above them indicating that they'd be marked for destruction after about 30 seconds. Now again, I don't know if this was a bug or not, and to be honest throughout my time playing it had been hard to tell what is an intended mechanic and what is actually a bug. Aside from the issues I've already mentioned, I also had audio bugs where after transitioning between areas, the music for both areas would play over the top of each other. Another bug where after removing the business from this large building, I was then stuck in the menu and had to reload the game to get out of it. And finally, the bug which stopped me from playing the game occurred on the second level, where the first thing you need to do is speak to this building by hitting the Y button. I obviously tried the Y button and every other button, but nothing happened regardless of what I pressed, and after starting a new game and going through the whole first level again, I got back to the same point, only to find the same bug, and so I was unable to progress any further into the game. Now, Buildings Have Feelings 2 initially grabbed my attention with its visuals, and I still think they're pretty cool and enjoy the quirkiness of them, but the game does suffer a little from frame rate slowdowns on occasions, despite the visuals and textures being relatively simple. On the audio side, things are kept pretty simple. We get some sound effects for our building's clunky footsteps and some brick sounds when we talk to other buildings, and there is some nice ambient background noise for the different areas, but these are all drowned out by the game's music. Now, don't get me wrong, it isn't bad music and it wouldn't normally bother me, but its volume is just way too loud by default, and despite heading into the options menu and turning it down, it always resets back to max volume each time you change zones or load up your game. Overall, I thought Buildings Have Feelings 2 had some great potential to be an interesting city management game, but I just encountered far too many bugs in the game's current version, and the gameplay mechanics just felt overly complex and convoluted to the point that, for me personally, it just lost any fun or appeal that it had to offer. I found the whole process of constantly repositioning buildings to meet their upgrade goals and then repositioning them further to meet other goals became quite monotonous, and while I can't actually comment on the rest of the game with the amount of unlockable buildings, I can just see the issues that I encountered becoming compounded the further into the game you get. Now to end this review, I'm not going to tell you not to buy the game, as the issues that I've encountered may be fixed with the day 1 patch, and I haven't been able to play through enough of the game to cover the late game mechanics. I would however advise that you check out other reviews of the game, and I know that Switchheads and Switch Corner have both been playing the game and have encountered their own issues, so I highly recommend watching their reviews before deciding on whether to pick up the game when it releases. If I'm being honest, the game wasn't quite what I expected, and while I can see where the developers were going with it, I'm not sure how enjoyable it'll prove to be if the rest of the game areas are just a repeat of the first. So that's about it for this review, so make sure to hit that like button if it helped you out, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as I publish new Switch game reviews every couple of days. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.